this. Okay, I heard it start. So, okay, so I just started recording and we just introduced ourselves. Again, we have Lydia Raya here today, Grayson Johnson, and Leslie Mock. And I'll send this recording probably next week, but I'll send the slides out today. So welcome, welcome. Super excited to have you here. We'll have a few times throughout the orientation this morning for you to ask tons of questions. And we'll go over like really specific sample plans to get you through the first year, and then, you know, other resources as well. And I know many of you have scheduled appointments with me for next week. We also have drop-in advising that'll be available again next Wednesday. So lots of opportunities to ask questions if they're not answered today. Okay, cool. So I already said this, but I just want to clarify today's orientation is for computer science transfers. So if you're an EECS transfer, you want to hop off because things are a little bit different for you, mostly the same, but you will have a different Golden Bear advising session. So this one is specifically for computer science. If you chose something other than computer science on your application to UC Berkeley, we're going to go over what that means for you in a later slide. All right, so who and where are we? So we are your CS advisors. That means that we are the advisors for your major. And what's sort of different about UC Berkeley versus community college is I know at a lot of community college, it's like you have one counselor and they know everything and anything there is to know about how to transfer and all the various programs that they offer. At Berkeley, you're going to have two advisors. So we are your advisors for your major, and these are the buildings where we sit. So Leslie and I are in this green building on the left, and Grayson is in the like white gray building on the right. So the green one is Soda Hall, and that's the main computer science building. And then the other building is Corey. That's the main electrical engineering building. It's just across the street from each other. So we have lots of advisors who are here to help you. You can email us individually, but it's best to contact us here at this alias because it reaches all of us at once. And so you're going to get your fastest response if you email us all at the same time. And so that's cs-advising@cs.berkeley.edu. A good place to start if you're looking for information about the major is this page here. So eeks.berkeley.edu/resources/undergrads. Also, we're going to be going over a lot of information today, and you don't have to memorize it all because you have the website and the search works really well too. So if you just start at eeks.berkeley.edu and kind of put in the search bar what you're looking for, probably going to get you there. So again, yeah, don't feel like you have to memorize everything. I will send you the slides too. So here's our full team. On the left here is Antoine Davis. He's our director of the whole team. And then, so Leslie and Grayson are here joining us today, but then we also have Carol, who's a full-time CS advisor. And then Gina splits her time between EECS and CS majors, just like Grayson does. And then Kate splits her time between the two majors, and she also manages the electrical engineering enrollment for those classes. So if you're trying to get into an EE class and have questions about that, Kate would be a great contact. So again, we all have one email where you can reach us. And also I put, I'm hoping this isn't cut off because it's kind of cut off for me. Leslie or Grayson, can you see the EECS 101 forum?
It does seem to be cut off a little bit.
It is cut off a little bit. Okay, so when I send you the slides, you'll have the full URL there. Sorry about that. But so this is our online forum for the department. It's called the EECS 101. It's on EdSTEM. So you're welcome to ask us questions via email. But the EECS 101 page is great because it's going to be posted to the whole department. And so if you want to ask the advisors a question about your schedule, awesome. But we're like giving you an advisor perspective. if you want a student perspective on a good, schedule, combination for the fall, let's say, you can put that out there and you can post anonymously, and then other students will chime in and let you know what their thoughts are. So that's a really good resource as well for getting questions answered. I see that there's a question already, so I'm just going to go through the next first slides, and then we'll have spots throughout the presentation to get questions answered, so we'll not forget. Okay, so kind of like how I mentioned earlier, you're going to have two different advisors helping you throughout your time here at Cal. So on the left, that's us, computer science within the EECS department. So we are kind of known as CS advising, or your undergraduate major advisor, UMA, that's sort of what the advisors call it. And then the locations, again, we're in 349 Soda and also in 205 Corey. And you can ask us about anything related directly to the major or to just computer science. So those are like going to be our main, areas of expertise. And then I put here the link for our advising page on our website, which shares, drop-in and appointment information. During the summer, though, right now, we're only going to be doing drop-ins, and that's going to be virtual on Wednesdays. And so we'll resume appointments in the fall. And then, hoping my dogs are not going to start barking. Various questions that you could bring to an advising appointment. Like I think I saw the question in the chat just now, like how do I get into an EE class? How do I get into a CS class? How do I get involved in research or internships? Those are all great questions you could bring to advising appointments with us. Your other main advisor is going to be your from the College of Letters and Science. So those advisors are called college advisors or LNS advisors, and their location is in 156 Dwinell. So question, or what they're experts on is going to be like anything outside of the major. So have I completed IGETC? What does that mean for me? Or, American cultures, have I completed that yet? Can I get an extra semester? They're going to be the experts on those kinds of questions. And those are non-CS focused. And then I have their website as well for how to book with them. A really also big difference for appointments between the two is the CS advisors use Cal Central to make appointments with them. And I have some slides included on how to go through those steps. LNS uses a different site for making appointments with them. So oftentimes we'll hear a student say, oh, I couldn't figure out how to make an LNS appointment, so I just went into Cal Central and booked. But then you're bringing us LNS questions, which we usually cannot answer. So make sure you do find their appointment booking service, which is on their website. And then, again, here's some sample questions. You could ask them about breadths, about American cultures, withdrawing, if you are on probation, things like that. So more general, broader questions. Okay, so just a reminder that for the summer, we're only going to be available, the CS advisors will only be available on Wednesdays for virtual drop-in, and our hours are 10 to 12, and then 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And there's our website again for how to get the Zoom link for that. So in the fall, we will probably just go back to both in-person and virtual drop-ins on Wednesdays. Wednesday is always our drop-in day. And then appointments will also be available again starting this fall, and you can book them again through Cal Central. And we will probably be going back to both in-person and virtual appointments as well. But say it's Thursday and you have a question and you're like, oh man, I missed drop-in day. Send us an email. We're available all week, Monday through Friday during normal business hours. And we get a lot of questions, but we're pretty good about getting back to you within a day or two. So definitely send us an email at the alias. It's the best way to reach all of us and get questions answered. So the next slides just include kind of how appointments can be booked in Cal Central. This, to be honest, these slides are a little bit old, so things might look slightly different, but I think it's going to get you to a good starting point of how to go through. But I'm not going to go over there in detail, just so you can review them later on your own. And just again, the appointments will be available starting in the fall. Okay. So there are lots and lots of resources available to you on campus. I think sometimes the hardest part is just making sure you do take advantage of those resources, but there are so many people who want to help you. I included here the LNS New Transfer Guide, so that would be a great starting point. Also, there's a Transfer Student Center, and they're really awesome. They offer, various programs and also 1-unit seminars for your first semester. I'm actually going to be teaching one of those sections this fall. I don't know which section yet. So those sections are going to be like transfers across campus, so not just focus in computer science. They can, or even in, they're mostly going to be in the College of Letters and Science, but it could be data science transfers or English or history, like all over the map. So that's could be a cool place to meet other transfers. I also included a couple bullet points below. There's also a transition seminar that's specific to the College of Engineering for new transfers. And although you're in the College of Letters and Science, it's totally okay for you to take this transition seminar if you want. And again, sorry, that's cut off, but I'll send you the slide. So there's 2 different sections you can choose from. So that might be a good option if you want it to be more focused in engineering. But it's going to be computer science, mechanical engineering, EECS, all engineering students, including CS, and I believe data science as well. And then I just didn't want to, I saw an email go out about an application coming up for transfer students for a fellowship program. So I just wanted to include that here so you can look at the website to kind of learn more about what that opportunity is. And I do have, the transfer student graduated in the fall, but he did do this fellowship. I don't know if we have any student parents today, but I wanted to include some resources for you as well. There's also a student parent center, just like there's a transfer center. And there is preschool available on campus. I'm not sure about the slots availability, but wanted to include that. And then there's a listserv that might be nice for you to connect with other parents. Oops, sorry. And then and then the Be Well at Work. This includes, various workshops on like time management, if you're returning to work after maternity leave, things like that. And then there's also, then there's that Care Bubbles resource, and then camps also available for older kids as well. The CS Scholars Program is something that our department offers, and transfer students can apply as well. That deadline is really coming up next week, so make sure you take a look at that if you're interested. Charlene is the program director, and she was previously a CS advisor for a very long time, so she's really familiar with requirements and things like that. She works on our team. We work in the same office with her, actually, Leslie and I do, in 349 Soda. So this is like a cohort program that's going to put you in, so, say for CS 61A, which is the first required CS class, it's going to put you in a discussion and lab section with other transfer students. So if that sounds interesting to you, then I would definitely encourage you to check out the website and apply by the deadline. And then I included Charlene's contact below because she's going to be the best person to ask questions about that program too. Okay, just a few more questions and then, or pages, and then we'll take a break for questions. So kind of more broad resources here. There's a Facebook page that's going to have, where you can post questions about CS. There's also a course advice Facebook page. And this, I'm like out of date because these are probably like on TikTok or something now, but you can find that out and let me know how old I am. But if you want general, kind of course advice outside of CS, this would be a good place too. And then lastly, we had an EEC student take an EEC transfer, take the class CS 195 this spring. And as part of the class project, they made a podcast, and I think all the transfers are EECs, but obviously very close to CS. And I listened to it, and they're just talking about so CS 195, I should share, is the ethics class. It's not required for the CS major, but it is for the EECs major. So that's why these EECs transfers took it. And if you're interested, you could just take a listen. It's their perspectives on tech culture, but they also do talk about, some transfer perspectives as well. So it could be interesting. Okay, I just talked a whole bunch. So let's take a break for questions. So Leslie or Grayson, if you could help me with anything that I've missed.
We've just got two at the moment. One question was, do CS students get priority enrollment for EE classes? And the other was, are there any on-campus jobs, non-work study related to CS?
So for priority enrollment for EE classes, so let me think. So for lower division, there are only 2 lower division EE classes. Those are called EEC 16A and B. And I believe you do have some enrollment priority for both of the classes. It's not going to be a ton, but I think that there should be some spots reserved for CS majors. For upper division, they are open to anyone, at least for the time being. So unless something changes, a year from now when you might be taking those, that something could change. But for right now, they're open. So as long as you sign up for the popular ones, like at the beginning of your enrollment period, you should have a good chance of getting in. And then let's see the work question. On-campus jobs related to CS. I can't really think of anything offhand. I mean, I feel like occasionally things come up more of like summer opportunities, like they need, coding for, some website or something done. I wouldn't say it's super often though. Leslie or Grace, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any on-campus opportunities for students to practice their CS skills. It's mainly students would pursue internships, which is more common. And so I think if you do find something on campus, like Lydia mentioned, it might be a summer opportunity to work on developing maybe something for a certain department. So it might not be the CS department, but maybe other departments might need a developer, someone to code. I haven't really seen those or heard of that, but you never know.
Yeah, it's not super common. I have heard of like the college, like LNS was trying to update their social media and they hired someone to code to build out something like that. But that's not, super high availability. And there is also research, but that's not paid.
Okay, so I see another question. Are the advising appointments just for questions we have related to the CS major, or will we be making our full schedules during these meetings? So yes to both. You can ask questions related to the major, and we can kind of map out schedules. And during this advising group session, we're going to go over the first 2 semesters, but in an appointment, you can also like map out the rest of the time as well. Sometimes it's hard at the beginning to do like the exact classes, but usually what I do is I put like placeholders so you can get a feel for what your time is going to look like for the rest of, you know, until you graduate. For 61B, 47B questions, I'm just going to wait on that until we get to that section, because we're definitely going to go over that part later. And then let's see. So in your experience, how hard would it be for somebody to double major in something like math? As a transfer student, double majoring is going to be less common. It's not impossible, but, and if it's in a really closely related area like math to CS, then it's going to make it more likely to do it. You can share 2 of the same upper division classes between double majors. So that makes it just more feasible. But I think kind of like what the student was asking before, what I would recommend is making an appointment and mapping out what your time is going to look like. And we can do the CS requirements for you. And then you could add on your math requirements and see like, what is this really going to be like each semester? And then just, you know, take it semester by semester and reassess. And what do you have time for and what don't you have time for as a double major student? That's kind of something that I like to ask students about, like, are there things outside of class that you also want to do? Like Grayson mentioned research or working on course staff, you know, helping out in the classes. So when you're taking on so many classes, it takes usually time away from other opportunities.
And also for double majors, you do get the option for 1 additional semester guaranteed as far as fitting in the timeline.
So are there spots in classes specifically reserved for transfers? So yes, and I have kind of a slide about this later, but if you look in Cal Central, if you put computer science on your application to UC Berkeley, you should now see your status say computer science. A week or 2 ago, I think it still said undeclared, but I know they worked on fixing that. And if you don't see computer science yet, and you did put that on your application to Berkeley, please send me an email. And again, I'll go over this on a slide, but because, so now what the system recognizes is that you are a CS major. And so there are spots reserved for you as a CS major. We don't necessarily need to like separate out transfer students anymore because we include the, you know, you in that CS major number. But so yes, there are seats reserved for you as a CS major. And enrollment starts, there's also a slide about this in July. I think it's July 11th, but I have a slide on that. And yes, I will explain the direct admit policy on a later slide. Okay, I think I'm going to take a break from questions because I know they're super schedule related, which we will go over. So let me get back to the slides and then we will take another question break. Okay, so how do I declare the CS major? So as most of you, I believe, know, we are now doing a direct admit policy for transfer students. So before, you would come in as undeclared and then have to meet a certain GPA to declare your major. And we're not doing that for at least the next 2 years. So as long as you put computer science on your application to UC Berkeley and you are admitted to UC Berkeley, you should have already been by now declared as computer science in Cal Central. But again, if you don't see that yet, and that is your circumstance that you put it on your application, then please send me an email so that I can talk to the registrar to fix it for you. If you did not put computer science on your application to Berkeley and you are admitted as a transfer to some other major, data science, math, anything else, you will have until the end of summer 2024 to take the prerequisites, which are CS61A, CS61B, and CS70. And you need to earn at least a GPA of a 3.3 in those classes to declare computer science. After summer 2024, you will no longer be able to switch to CS. So you do need to get started on those prerequisites, either if you're already in the summer, great, or next fall. It is going to be hard getting into the classes. So again, you want to start trying to take them as soon as possible. And CS61A was expanded for this fall. Now there are going to be 2 sections of it. So that's really great. So take advantage and don't put off taking that class. And then just to maintain in good standing with your major and your college, you just need to complete your requirements with at least a 2.0. So once you're declared in the CS major, which most of you here today already are, all you need to worry about is a 2.0 from here on out. So let me go back to that question and make sure I answered. Did I answer that direct admit policy question by what I just went over? Sorry, Leslie or Grayson. Yeah, okay, thanks. And okay, there's sort of a question related to that, but I'm going to wait on that one just to see what our next slide is. Okay, so transfer coursework. If you attended a community college in California, you can use assist.org, which I'm sure is your best friend. And then that's all you need to do. If it's listed there as transferable or partially transferable, there's nothing more you need to do because that's what we use. That's, you know, the official transfer coursework database. And then if it wasn't listed there, you know that it was not transferable. But you don't need, my point is, if you transferred for a California community college, you don't need to send us an email, send us your syllabi. You can just go off of what assist.org says. If you're transferring from a UC, then we will work on getting your classes evaluated. And let's make an appointment so we can go over that, as well as if you went to a community college outside of California, or just any institution other than a California community college. Okay, so if you're one of those students, so I did not go to a California community college, what do I do? For math, you can send those syllabi to this website here. They have a Google form where you can submit, and they're gonna evaluate your coursework, send you an email with the results, and then you can forward us the email so we know, you know, do you have Math 1A, Math 1B, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll record it for you. If you took a class that you think might be equivalent to 61A, B, or C, you can send me the syllabus. So just send it directly to me, and then I work with the faculty to get those evaluated. You can also copy the CS advising alias on these emails. So we're all kind of in the loop together. For CS70, this is discrete math. This class cannot actually be transferred. Our faculty just have a policy that they want everybody to take it at Berkeley. So you may have taken a class that's equivalent to Math 55, which is the math department's discrete math course. And that's fine, that'll work for the math department, but you do need to take CS70 for us. There is what's called a bridge course for CS 70, but we would want you to talk with us first, because there's not really an advantage to taking that course. It's best to just take CS 70, the full course. And then for EEC 16A, and then even 16B, it's very hard to find classes that are equivalent to those. So you just send us a question if you have one about those classes. But if you took Math 54, which most of you have, I assume, that's linear algebra, differential equations, then you don't even need to worry about 16A. And EEC 16B is not required. Okay, so let's just go over some class requirements. So what you actually need to take now that you've transferred. You're going to have what's called lower division requirements, and those are courses with the numbers 1 through 99. And I've linked here what those requirements are. And then we have upper division requirements, and those have numbers 100 through 199. So that's just kind of some general information about that. And this is an update from last fall, but the tech elective requirement, which is upper division, is only 4 units. It used to be higher, so now it's just 1 class, and you can take an approved class outside of computer science. And so this is kind of the general information about what's required for you for the CS major. And then the lower division requirements again are there. And then, you know, students want to know, like, what did the upper division requirements actually look like? So it's going to be 6 classes. One is going to be what's called a design class. And we have a big list of options for you for what counts. 2 upper division classes must be in CS because your major is in CS. Another 2 can be in CS or EE. So like the student who asked about getting into EE classes, you can take EE upper division and it will count for your major. You could actually take up to 4 classes because you could take a EE design class. You could take 2 EE upper division here at the 3rd bullet, and then your non-CS tech elective could also be EE. So if you're really interested in electrical engineering, you can still study that as a CS major. But your tech elective does need to fall outside of CS. And so you can find the approved list that's linked through the upper division link here. Okay. So this is kind of a visual representation of what the major looks like. So the lower division here is going to be 61A, 61B. 61A is structure and interpretation of computer programs. 61B is data structure. So that's the most common class that transfers will have either fully or partially articulated before coming to Berkeley. 61C is machine structures, and some students will also have that class completed. And then CS 70 is really a math class. It's called discrete math. And then finally, EEC 16A or Math 54 is linear algebra. So that's going to be your lower division. And transfer students are usually finishing these anywhere in their 1st or 2nd semester, depending on what you're coming to Berkeley with, having already finished. And then we get to the deep upper division. So the lower division is going to be really broad, covering lots of topics for CS. And then upper division is going to be more specific into areas of CS. And so kind of what I went over on the last page, there's areas of units that you need to fulfill, but you get to choose which classes are going to fulfill those requirements. So we have lots of classes to choose from, which is really cool. You get a lot of flexibility and freedom with that. And then one of the upper division classes, that tech elective, just needs to be outside of CS. So it's kind of a more interdisciplinary major. So just a general picture of your first semester is that 13 units is what's required unless you have a reduced course load approved. But so you're going to be looking at 13 units per semester for LNS, but also it's a great starting point. So you don't want to take too many classes in your first semester because it's a big transition of learning. Like, you've been in college for however many years by now, but what's college like at Berkeley? This is going to be a, experiment. So here's some, general ideas for the first semester. A CS course or Data 8, and I'll explain why more later why I'm suggesting Data 8, and then another CS course, so maybe 61A. A lot of transfer students will not have American Cultures completed because this is not included in IGETC. So if you did not actually seek out to complete your American Cultures class, you probably did not take it already because that's a specific requirement to UC Berkeley, not all of the UCs. And then, so each one of those would be about 4 units. And then to get to 13, you could take a seminar. So again, I'm including those numbers for the engineering specific transfer seminar, or you could take what's called a decal. And this is a 1 unit or 2 unit class that's taught by other students. And it's like a huge range of topics from, how to solve a Rubik's Cube to maybe history on someone to there are engineering focused ones as well. So there's lots to choose from. The decal sections will not be posted until probably August. Okay, let's go over some sample questions. Let me just take a quick look at the questions here. So if a student takes the minimum of 15 units, the minimum is actually 13 units, but if you take a minimum of 15 units per semester, will that student be able to graduate in 2.5 years? Yes. Yeah, our students are, usually taking 13 to, if you take 13 units per semester, you should be able to graduate in that time. And what are the chances that CS courses are full by the time we enroll? So again, there are going to be classes reserved specifically for CS majors. So if you're a CS major, you will have seats reserved for you. I thought I heard that if I had taken discrete structures at community college, I could skip most of CS 70 and just take 1 small unit course. So again, you could, but we would want you to meet with an advisor to talk about it. Because CS 70 is a really important class, and you would need to get approval for that. So just, reach out, make it, or come to drop in or email us and just give us more information about your background. And does Data 8 fulfill any requirements at all? No. But now in the sample schedules, I will go over why I'm suggesting that class. So I'm linking the full enrollment priorities here. So for that student who was asking about, getting into classes, you can read, this is for CS classes. For your lower division classes like 61A, 61B, 70, 61C, those are going to have seats reserved for you. So you will not have issues getting into those classes as a CS major. For upper division as well, we reserve classes for CS majors. We don't have enough seats in every single class to fit all students. So, you just might have to try for 1 class 1 semester. And then if you don't get in that semester, change to the next semester, if that makes sense. But some classes tend to be really big. So getting into classes is not quite an issue. And then other classes are smaller for various reasons. So as a transfer student, you are at this point, you're going to be super focused on your major because you've already done most likely by GETC, or you don't have a lot of general education requirements that you're focusing on. So that's great. But that being said, we don't want you to take on too much too soon because CS classes are tough. So it's going to be important to be strategic and pair your classes well. So classes that are going to go complement each other instead of, a couple classes that are super heavy and, compete for your time. So that's one reason why I'm suggesting Data 8 as a class that could be in your first semester. It is not required for the CS major, but it could be a good option. Data 100 is an upper division class that can count for the CS major, and Data 8 is a hard prereq for that class. So that's also another reason why I'm suggesting if you have any interest in taking Data 100 in the future, which is the introductory data science class, then I would recommend taking Data 8 so that you are ready to take that class. And it will count for the CS major. Again, Data 100 will count. We just pretend it's a CS upper division class because that's actually where it started. It used to be called CS 100. And then so, Data 8 could maybe go pair well with 61A or 61B in your first semester. Another option is finding a non-CS tech elective, and this is the list linked here, that's not known to be super heavy and pairing that with something. So that's a great question to post to that EdSTEM page that we linked earlier. What are good suggestions for a non-CS tech elective that are not high workload? Data 100 is actually a class I hear recommended for that. It's not super heavy, and it can count as either a non-CS tech elective or a CS upper div, I should clarify. Linguistics 100 is another one. There's tons of classes on this list, so you'll want to dive into those to look more. And then another option when you're planning your schedule is thinking about next summer. A lot of students obviously want to intern, but the first summer after you transfer can be hard to find an internship just because maybe you haven't taken enough classes yet. So if you don't get an internship, a backup plan could be take 61C or a CS upper division class that we offer, so that you're making good progress and kind of able to balance your load better during the fall and the spring. Okay, so here's an actual sample plan here. So this would be for a student whose school did not offer any of our classes, the CS classes, and they need to take everything after transferring. And this would be for 4 or 5 semesters. So in the fall, again, you could take, 61A and Data 8 together, maybe your American cultures, and then a decal or seminar. And then there's some, notes there that I just went over. And then in the second semester, you would be looking at 61B and 70, something else outside of CS. And then again, a decal or seminar to get to 13. Something that's really important to remember, and it's, I think it's hard for a lot of transfers to remember when they first come to Berkeley, is you have your major, but you also do have some specific unit requirements you need to meet for LNS. And one of those is a very specific number of upper division units. So remember, those are classes numbered 100 to 199. And LNS requires 36 of those in order to graduate. Your major is going to cover most of those. So our major will give you 24 upper division units. But that means there's still 12 that you need to take, right? So there are other classes that you do need to take, not just your major. So one way to get towards that 36 is your American Cultures class. Take an upper division American Cultures. So that gets you from 24 upper division to 28. And then the decals, those are going to be upper division as well, or the seminars. So it's 198. So that counts. So anything that you can take here or there, tutoring often will be a 198. Those are all going to help you reach those unit requirements. Okay, so this next sample is for a student who has a partially articulated course to 61B. And so I think this goes back to a question from earlier. For the student who messaged me directly, yes, this is being recorded, and I'll send you the recording. I'm also going to send you the slides today. Okay, so if we have partial credit for 61B, are we supposed to take 47B, which is the bridge course? Or can we take 61B, or will we, so which is it? What do you want to, what can we take, or what do we have to take? So I'm going to assume that you chose computer science on your application to UC Berkeley. So if you're already a CS major, really it's just up to you. 61B is a really great class. It's also really hard, but it's very great for preparing for internships. So even if you have a partially articulated class, you might take 61B anyway just to get the full experience, but you don't have to. If you want to take 47B, which is the bridge class, this fall, you can just contact us. I have the permission codes as well as Carol, one of our other advisors. So we would just verify that your class was partially transferable, and then we'll give you the code. But it's a self-paced class. And so sometimes that works better for one kind of student than another, because it's really up to you to make sure you're finishing your work. There's a multi-line project, and some students wait till the end and then they don't have enough time and they don't do well. So I think it's important to think about yourself as a student and what works better for you, something that you really are forced to keep track of all semester long because it's the full class and you'll have all the resources available to you. Or are you okay working independently? And that's fine. But so this would be an option if you had a partially articulated one. So the first semester, you could do 61A, 70, and Data 8 together. This would be a heavy first semester, but if you were really gung-ho about, getting stuff done, that could be an option. And then for the second semester, either the bridge class 47B or 61B, and then AC, that's the American cultures. And then you do need to take 13 units. So you also want to think about, oh, if I only take 47B, I need to make up those units somehow. That's option 1. And then here's option 2. This is just separating 61A and 70, which you probably would be happier with. But so 61A and Data 8 in the fall, either the bridge course or 61B along with 70 in the spring. And students, especially transfers, do take 61B and 70 together. It is a busy combination, but it is one that students do often. Let me take a pause here at the question. I came a little late, so I'm not sure if this question was answered. Do we have to take EECS 16A and B in order to take EECS 27? So you can look up the prerequisites to those classes from memory. I do believe that both are required for EECS 127. But maybe one of the advisors could put in a link to the guide. And that's where the official prerequisites are. With most of our classes, I'll add, prerequisites are not exactly enforced. So at community college, I know a lot of the time the system checks and it will not let you enroll in a class if you haven't met certain requirements. At Berkeley, it's a little different. A lot of classes, we're relying on you to take the prerequisites and then sign up for, the next class. So you want to think about, if I don't fulfill those prerequisites, am I really ready for the upper division class? So it's a kind of a question for yourself. Okay, the next question, are we only allowed to take upper division courses until we finish the lower division requirements? No, you can take, as long as you're declared in the CS major, you will have access to upper division. But again, here's the prereq question. have you fulfilled prerequisites for an upper division CS class? That's the main criteria you want to think about. And certain like 61A, 61B, and 70, it's hard to take an upper division that doesn't require those. So those I would focus on completing those in your first year. But 61C is not required for every class. So maybe that's a class that, you know, you wait until next fall and you could take an upper division class next summer that doesn't require 61C. I already have a C for comp architecture, which I'm guessing is 61C in community college. Can I transfer credits of that class to UCB? Yeah. So a C is fine. If that's a fully transferable class to CS 61C, that's fine. We'll take that.
Also, just quickly to piggyback on that, just so it's clear to everyone, like any classes that are transferable are the units are already there. And then as far as getting credit would just be for the major.
Mm-hmm.
So the units have already carried over in your transfer unit total, and then this would just be taking care of major requirements.
Right, and that grade would not be included in your GPA at Berkeley. Okay, is CS 47B just projects, or will there also be exams in it? So there's actually two versions of CS 47B. One is the full standard one where it's going to be exams and projects, and I don't know if there's extra homeworks. But then the other 47B is called project only. So that one's just projects. Or like the one big project. So if you're not sure which one you qualify for, reach out to us and we will look that up for you. Is there a good combination of these first lower division classes so that we can take an upper division in the second semester? I think it depends on which kind of upper division you're talking about. Like there is an upper division tech elective, so that could be taken in the second semester. Because it's not going to be in CS. So that's an option. If you took data 8 in the first semester, maybe you could take data 100 in the second semester. That's upper division. So I think it just kind of depends on what we're talking about. And how do you make an advisor appointment? So appointments are going to be available starting in the fall. We are having drop-in is going to resume next Wednesday. So definitely, and when I send you the slides today, after this is over, it has the link for where our drop-in is, and it's going to be virtual throughout the summer. So you could definitely come to virtual advising next Wednesday and go over a schedule. Okay, and then how does auditing classes work, and can we audit courses that are not related to our major? Definitely. There's not like a super standard official policy that I'm aware of, at least for what our department does is, you know, you can check in with the professor and say, hey, can I audit your class? And they say yes or no. A lot of our classes are so big that they don't really know. So as long as you're being respectful and maybe you're not there on exam days, it's not generally an issue, but for a smaller class, I would definitely check in with the professor. And who should I talk with to get permission to 47C? You can email me or the CS advising alias, and I would go over, you know, verifying your class and then connect you with the head TA for 47C. Okay, I'm going to try to get through the sample plans and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So that'll be great. Did I skip this? No, that one I just did. Okay. Okay, so some students come in with both 61B and 61C completed. Oftentimes DVC students, this might be for you. So 61A and data 8 could be a good option for this fall, along with the other, you know, units to get you to 13. And then maybe CS 70 something else for LNS to meet your unit requirements, and then the non-CS tech elective. After we go over the first few of these, you see like a lot of them are very, very similar. They're just kind of slightly varied from one another. And then some students come in having completed 61A. So there's a couple options. You could spread out 61B and 70 from each other. And then you can see the other classes here are pretty much the same. Data 8 in the fall, maybe a non-CS tech elective in the spring. So this is kind of helping to balance your schedule. And then the second option would be to take 61B and 70 together in the fall, which is, it's busy, but it's totally doable and students do it. You can also always start out in a certain schedule and then, you know, switch. You have 3.5 weeks to finalize your schedule. You'll want to keep in mind that you do need 13 by the end of that, you know, add drop deadline. So some students will add an extra class so that they have a buffer if they need to drop something. And then the second semester, you know, I could have put 61C or a CS upper division here. It's kind of more open in that second semester if you have both 61B, 70 completed in the fall and you already took 61A. Okay, let's go back to questions. And I think that, oh, I do have one more section of slides, but we're kind of getting near the end. So this is good for lots of question time. Can I get a full experience of 61B if I audit 61B? So I'm assuming that you already have 61B articulated. So that's why you're wondering about that. I don't know for sure. I think what I might do is put you in contact with either the head TA or the professor, because I don't know, you know, what is going to be available and not available to you if you audit versus doing the bridge course or something like that. So I think if you would want to reach out to the advisors, we could look into that for you. And then would 61A and 70 in the same semester be bad? Great question. You would definitely be really heavy. Before transfers, when they came in as undeclared and then had to meet the GPA to declare CS, we saw 61A and 70, I think, more together. Now I feel like there's less pressure to do that. So if you're able to split up those classes, I think that would be ideal. But can it be done? Yes, of course. But both classes are, you know, 61A is a great first class, but it's also like really a lot of work. And I think some, not just transfers, but students in general, they think because it's the first CS class that it's, and maybe they've taken Python and they, you know, they don't take it as seriously as they need to. And then they realize, whoa, this is a really hard class. So they underestimate. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Whereas CS 70, I think, is very known to be a very challenging class. So yes, you definitely could try that combination. And then if it doesn't work, you could drop something before the add drop deadline. But I don't know that there's a real need to do that combination of classes together anymore now that CS transfers are coming in as declared. Okay, I'm gonna go to this next section and then we're getting towards the end here. Okay, so just some grading and repeat policies. All classes at Berkeley for your major, or if you do a minor, they need to be taken for a letter grade. So you will not be wanting to pass, not pass those classes. And for pass, not pass policies for other classes outside of your major, outside of your minor, that would be like an LNS question. And then the campus policy is you are able to repeat courses in which you get a D+ or lower or a not pass. So those grades or those classes can be repeated, and then just like the second grade or the higher grade would be included in your campus GPA. But if you do pass a class, which means a P or a C minus or higher, you would not be able to repeat those classes. One note I should have included here is for those students who did not put CS on their application to Berkeley, you have a different repeat policy for the prerequisite classes. Basically, if you fail, let's say 61A the first time, or you get a D+ or lower, and then you want to retake that class, we're going to take both of those classes in the GPA to declare CS. So if you get an F the first time and A the second time, we're not going to take the A, we're going to average them and they become a C. So that's a really important policy for declaring the CS major. Again, if you did not choose CS on your Berkeley application, that you need to be aware of. Okay, so you will be signing up for classes starting July 11th. So we have a few weeks for you to meet with advisors, get your schedule settled for the fall, so that you know exactly what classes you're going to pick starting July 11th. You do get priority because you are CS majors. For those who are not CS majors, you're going to want to try to get into 61A, and it did expand more. So hopefully that, there's still seats available. But you can email CS-enrollments at berkeley.edu if you have CS enrollment related questions. And then again, here are full enrollment policies linked there. Okay, and that's the last slide. So just remember, you can email me at any time. You can reach all of the advisors as well. And I know lots of you have appointments booked with me for next week, so that's great. Thank you for making those, and come to drop-in advising as well. But so let's just get back to questions. Will Data 8 have a mega section fall 23? I have no idea. One thing that's hard is data science and CS are really closely related, and we're even joining a new college with them eventually, but we are very separate units in terms of enrollment management, advising, things like that. So that if Grayson or Leslie, if you could put the DS like maybe advising link or something in the chat, that would be great. Because that's going to be when data science questions would really need to be answered by data science advisors. Can you go back to degree requirements? Yes. Did you want to look at this page? It's hard to know who I'm talking to here.
Yes, I can see
Oh,
that.
great. Okay, so how many units do we need to take to graduate? So total units you need are 120. That's the minimum number of units to graduate. And so that's going to include your transfer transfer units. So oftentimes the transfers will come in with about 70 transferable units, and then you'll have to take at least 50 at Berkeley to get to that 120. So maybe it's 70 transferred units. Our major is, our upper division is 24 units, and then the lower division, it's going to kind of depend on how many CS classes you need to take. And then there are the LNS unit requirements too. Maybe Leslie or Grayson, could you please go to the LNS website to find their degree requirements page and link that? Because that's going to have the specific unit requirements for LNS. That could be helpful to share as well.
So for the classes, the lower division classes we took at our community college, are they going to be, are the credits transferred to Berkeley?
As long as they were on assist, cs.org saying they transferred, then yes, up to 70 units will be transferred.
So just the units mentioned in assets.
Right. So if it was not a transferable class, it would not be included.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to send the Zoom recording. I see that's another question. I'm going to send the Zoom recording next week. We just need to first get it on our YouTube channel and get the live captioning going. And then I'll send the recording next week. But I'm going to send the slides today. Okay, are all CS courses offered in both fall and spring semesters, or are some only offered in the fall or the spring? Great question. For the lower division, so CS 61A, B, C, 70, those are basically always offered fall, spring, and even summer. Sometimes, you know, CS 70, we can't find an instructor over the summer. But those are basically always offered. It's when you get to the upper division, it's really going to depend. So a class like CS 170, which is like the next step after 70, like advanced algorithms, that class we see really every fall and spring, sometimes over the summer. CS 188 is artificial intelligence, almost always both fall and spring. Sometimes over the summer as well. But then we have a class like CS 160, which is UX, UI. That class is only offered once a year. Sometimes it's offered over the summer as well. But so it's really going to depend on which class we're talking about. Just make sure I don't have any direct messages. Or a student emailed me about, or sent a message about the schedule planner. Those are really hard questions for us to answer because we can't actually see the schedule planner. If a class is showing on classes.berkeley.edu is the official schedule for campus. So if a class is showing that it's being offered this fall on classes.berkeley.edu, then it should show up in the schedule planner because those are linked. So if you're seeing a class listed on classes.berkeley.edu, but not in the schedule planner, then send us an email and we'll try to see what's going on. So if I already have a C for, so for the computer architecture course, I'm assuming that that's CS61C. Then, and if it's officially articulated on assist.org, then yes, that can, the credits will transfer. A C grade is fine. Just the credits would transfer, not the grade, but that would fulfill that requirement as long as it's fully articulated for 61C on assist.org. And is it possible to skip American cultures if we have related coursework from community college? It's totally possible. We would just refer, well, this is really more of an LNS question, but LNS would just verify on assist.org that your class counts as American cultures. There is like a drop down you can choose from assist to check that. And then just keep in mind, you'll have to take a different upper division class to kind of to make sure you're meeting those upper division units for LNS.
Also, just to add on that and other like general campus requirements, right now it kind of varies, but a lot of transcripts are still under review. So at this point, your Cal Central might be saying that you have not satisfied American cultures, but you might have actually, but you'll have a clearer picture once we're closer to the semester. So don't necessarily take all of that as fully accurate at this point.
I saw recently that 61B is already almost completely full. Will it be difficult for us to get into some classes? So I haven't checked the 61B, stats today. The person who posted that question, are you wondering about 61B because you've already taken 61A? Are you taking it this summer? Okay, I'm not sure who asked the question, but I'm assuming that you're interested in 61B because maybe you have already taken 61A or will have. But we could, let's see, trying to think how to answer the question without knowing what's happening with the class. There are usually some classes or some seats available. Oh, well, so okay, here's something. Phase 1 has ended, right? Or it ends today, Grayson and Leslie? Yeah. Current students, their last day to sign up for classes, at least at this point, ends today. So after today, there's going to be a freeze and we're not going to see a bunch of students enroll until transfers start enrolling. So if there are still open seats at this point, I think that it's going to be fine by the time you start enrolling because there's not going to be any movement until then, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm applying for the CS Scholars Program, awesome. And they ask for what classes I will take in the first semester. Could I just tell them whichever class or do I need to send an official schedule? They want to know which classes because that's how a cohort would work. So I think we're meeting on Thursday, right? Or what? Thursday. So after we meet, you would have that information to submit your application. And that should be before the deadline, right? Yeah, that's before the deadline. So yeah, you could wait for our appointment and then send your application after that. Could we use 2 different community college classes to transfer credits for 61C? So it depends on what assist.org says. If you're using, if assist.org says this class plus this class equals 61C, yes, totally. But if assist.org doesn't say that they articulate to 61C, then we know that the classes don't transfer. But if maybe you're transferring from a UC or somewhere else, then send us an email. Just going to go back to the page with our contact. There are lots of really great questions. So thanks everybody for, asking them, and you'll definitely have more opportunities to ask, via email or next week at drop-in. So if you think of something later, don't worry. This isn't your only chance. And one thing I forgot to point out is this really cool shirt that I'm wearing. Hope that everybody can see that. But yes, hope that helps make you feel welcome. Are Math 54 and EEC 16A equivalent? I see that prereqs for, oh, great question. Okay, so basically if a upper division class has a prereq of EEC 16A and B, what do I do if I took Math 54 or consent of the instructor? Yeah, so is it possible if I talk to the instructor to enroll in the class? So Math 54, if a class just has EEC 16A as a prerequisite and you took Math 54, you're fine. If you took Math 54 and have no circuits or physics background or anything like that, then you might not be ready for the class. But what could help is definitely talking to the instructor could help, but also I would look up the class website and like go through the lectures, go through the topics and see what, you know, how comfortable you would feel taking the class without having taken EEC 16B. If you are interested for this class, I know it is full for the fall, so this would probably be for a future semester.
Also, speaking from the EEC side, there is a bridge course for 16A as well. So if you've done Math 54, but you want to get the 16A requirement covered, you can take EEC 47D, and that would be a question for me if you're interested.
I know someone just joined. We are kind of wrapping up, but you can ask questions if you have them, and then always send us an email later. And I will be sending the slides today after we're done, and I'll send the recording next week. Anyone want to be brave and tell us how you're feeling about starting in the fall, like maybe in the chat, if that makes you more comfortable, or you could even answer it. Somebody just logged off after I said that. But we do have a few more minutes and this is your time. So if there are no questions, you're welcome to just talk too. Let's see, here's a question. How many counseling appointments can we make a week? Just in case there is any urgent thing coming up, what do the drop-in hours look like for the fall? Great question. We really prefer one appointment made per week. That being said, you know, if you make your appointment and it's on Tuesday and then on Thursday you have a question, what do I do? If you don't have an appointment or drop-in has already passed and it's not until next week, email us. We are really great at getting back to students. Obviously, I can't promise if it's Friday afternoon, we're going to get back to you that afternoon. But you can always email questions. And I know that right now, especially before things have started, there's a lot of anxiety and you know, there's wanting to get things settled. So definitely send us emails if it's outside of the drop-in time frame, and we'll do our best to get your questions answered as soon as possible. But we do really ask that only one appointment per week because we do have lots of students and we want to be fair and give everybody a chance to, I mean, right now we're not doing appointments, but you know, we want to give everybody time to meet with advisors. Are there any requirements before enrolling in classes like academic plan or similar? That's a great question. So we don't require that for CS. I believe, Grayson or Leslie, I don't know if you know, the students need to do modules for LNS.
Oh, you'll need to complete your GBA before you have access to your enrollment.
Oh, good to know. So yes, there is a requirement in Cal Central. It's probably in your like task list or something. Yeah. So make sure you check that so that you can sign up for classes on July 11th.
Yeah, it's not that hard. You can do it. It takes a couple minutes.
Cool. I'm aware of what decals are, but what are seminars? Seminars are like, you know, any other advisor jump in here, but I would just describe them as kind of a low stakes overview of a topic. So there's not going to be like a ton of work involved, but it's kind of an introductory of something. And usually they're only offered at 1 or 2 units. So that also means that you shouldn't expect a ton of like papers or reading or anything like that. Would study abroad be difficult for a CS major? So for a CS major is one question. For a CS major transfer, I think is another question. We do have, if one of the advisors could drop the study abroad page in the chat. We do have a study abroad webpage specific to CS and EECS majors. And on that page is a link to kind of a database of pre-approved classes and shows which country and university and what the class kind of translates to at Berkeley. So now that we've really developed this big long list, it's way more possible than it used to be in the past. And we do have transfers go abroad, but it's going to take really careful planning on your part. I don't know that I would recommend going abroad before you have your lower division CS requirements done, because most of it, when you look at that page of pre-approved classes, it's going to be focusing on the upper division. Also, something to think about is when I go abroad, am I going to take one class that's going to count for the CS major so that I can get something done, but also really enjoy my time abroad? Or am I going to take a bunch of classes and then kind of not be able to explore that area as much? So there's a few things to think about. There are summer abroad programs, like there's something called global internships. You wouldn't be able to get a class done for the CS major through global internships, but you would do an internship. So there's kind of, I think, more to talk about with that question, with, you know, so come to advising basically, and let's think about it, let's map it out, then also talk to the study abroad office. It's possible, but I would say it's less common. We have 1 minute left. So let me make sure. These are going to be our last couple questions. Do most CS transfers take 61A in the fall semester versus this upcoming summer? Yeah, I think most probably do. I don't know like the numbers to be sure, but I would say, I mean, a lot of transfers are going to take it this fall. And then do most CS upper divs have labs too? I don't think so. Some are going to have discussions, but the labs are more the lower division classes. Okay. We went the full time, so that's great, because that means there were so many questions, and yay, I'm excited, or I'm happy that people actually shared how they're feeling. So it's really, I want you to get to know each other. I think it's really important that we foster a community among each other, because, you know, you're going to get through this together. And I'm working with some transfers right now to get a social set up for the fall for transfer students for both EECS and CS. So I will send information about that when that's ready. But I'm really happy that you joined today. I will send the slides today after we log off, and then the recording I'm going to send out next week once we get it on our YouTube channel with closed captioning. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. Thanks, Grayson and Leslie, for helping out. And always send us an email, you know, when you have questions. All right, thank you so much. Glad it was helpful. Thank you.